So one thing that Trump claimed recently is that he's going to pull out of Ukraine essentially immediately. Uh, what do you think of
What
that?
is he going to pull out? What is he going to pull
Well,
out?
there's no, well, it's true. There's
Yeah,
not.
what is he going to pull out? Yeah,
He's
that's
like,
the
I think
that
he's signaling to Putin. I think that's what the real thing is. I think that he's saying this out loud in public so that he can get Putin's support to help him win the election, possibly. Well,
I
that's
think what he's going to do
one
is like
possibility.
no longer send American equipment to Ukraine. Like I don't know how much have you been following like the OSINT accounts and all that stuff. OSINT, the
Oh,
intelligence.
it's not a huge amount. I mean, I follow
Okay,
a bunch of them on Twitter, but
so the big revelation of the Ukraine war is the Russian army is garbage. They're not capable of doing combined arms warfare, and their equipment is absolutely subpar. The tanks, all the active protection systems, etc., that they developed in like the 2000s and 2010s, which are supposedly cutting edge and the equals to the American stuff, are basically 1990s and 1980s level crap. And another thing that was revealed through the American aid packages is the complete and utter superiority of American weaponry. Do you know what a Bradley is?
what the tank?
It's a troop transport
Oh,
vehicle.
yes.
It's built to yeah. Don't worry about it. Like most people probably don't know, it's supposed to transport troops to the front line on a protected vehicle, right? It's not designed to build tanks, to fight tanks, but we've seen one Bradley take on an entire Russian tank column and basically wipe it out. The, just absolutely superior. Now, the Americans already gave 300 Bradleys, I think, to the Ukrainians, and they're using them to decimate the fucking Russians. And yeah, I guess if Trump becomes president again and does his so-called pullout, what will actually happen is he will no longer send more of this American equipment there. And it's really, you know what the really dumb thing about all of this is? What you're sending to Ukraine, by the way, is your old stuff from the 90s. It's stuff that you would have been throwing away because it's decommissioned. And it's fucking hilarious if you think about it. Your old military shit from the 90s beats the new stuff the Russians built in the 2010s. Which is, yeah. It actually, you actually save money by sending ammunitions and equipment to the Ukrainians because the stuff you send is stuff that you would have otherwise had to pay to decommission, to take apart, to throw away, right? And this way you get to ship it away and it will actually be used. So it's actually a win-win for you. But yeah, if Trump does that, okay, no more American equipment. That means no more Bradleys, which are really effective. No more HIMARS missiles, which have proven to be really effective. No more ATACMS, which have also proven to be highly effective. But the Ukrainians will still be able to source artillery shells and Leopard tanks and scalp missiles from the rest of Europe. So they will still be able to keep on the fight, but it will be a tougher fight. Thing is
So
that the Ukrainians changed tactics recently. Like they no longer try to launch a counteroffensive to drive the Russians out of the land. They're basically now digging in and trying to kill as many Russians as possible in the hope that it will degrade the Russian capacity, which it probably is. I can show you some. Do you know what a Bukana is?
no, I do not.
Okay, so in Russian military development, right? They have a vehicle called the BMP, right? It's their version of an armored troop transporter, like their version of the Bradley. And it turned out to be crap. The BMP-4 was made in the 90s, and when the war began, the Russians used the BMP-4 to use their troops to transport their troops in, right? What we're seeing now is you could actually follow this as the war progressed throughout the last 2 years. After about half a year, the BMP 4s disappeared. Then the BMP 3s, which were made in the 80s, appeared. Then the BMP 2s, which were made in the 70s, started appearing because all the BMP 3s were suddenly all gone. Then the BMP 1s that were made in the 60s started appearing. Then we saw BTR 50s. These are vehicles that were made in I think designed in 1947 started appearing. And now even those are starting to disappear. And the Russians are increasingly using Bukharas, which are fucking vans, Soviet vans that lack sort of proper steering and proper brakes and were made from the 1970s onward. They're running out of gear. And I think like the tactic that the the Ukrainians are using now, which is just grind down the Russian capacity, grind down their gear, it's working. And it would be great if the Americans could continue supporting this grinding down of the Russian army, because keep in mind, a world without a large threatening Russian army is a better world. It is a better world, a much better world. Yeah,
So
sorry for going on a tangent.
no, Ukraine stuff is actually important. It's good. It's gonna make a good video clip. So, what do you see the current state of the battlefield being though right now? Where do you think we're at?
It's the Ukrainians have dug in, and they're basically training new brigades. They're using drones, like small FPV drones, to an incredibly effective way. Like they've basically, what they did across the country is that they turned every single little workshop that exists into a drone factory. And the Ukrainian people are basically building one drone after another, like these really shitty little drones. And they attach grenades and anti-tank grenades and mines to them, and then they fly them into enemy bunkers, enemy soldiers, enemy vehicles. And that tactic proved to be extraordinarily effective. Just sit back in your defensive line and just keep picking off the Russians. And they're also really innovative in the stuff they do. I recently tweeted out a video. I can send this video to you. It's really gross, actually.
Sure.
So you know that in Europe we're having a heat wave right now, right?
I actually wasn't aware, but yes, thanks for.
Yeah. What the Ukrainians started doing when the heat wave was coming was they started targeting Russian transports that were transporting water to the Russian trenches and front line. And the result of that was that the Russians ran out of drinking water. And where's the video of this? Wait, I'll find the video. Russian soldiers started drinking, I'm not making this up, trench water. The puddles that form in trenches. Like literally the same puddles that they shit and piss in and where corpses decay. They started drinking that because they ran out of water. So it's tactics like these, like slowly and carefully and meticulously, also taking advantage of different opportunities when they come. I think the Ukrainians right now, they have the upper hand because they're simply, they're better at adapting to the challenges that the battlefield currently brings up. All right.
Well, I hope you're right. Now, how do you know how much of this stuff you're seeing, like the Russian soldiers drinking the piss? Like, how do you know how much of
They
that is
posted
real versus how much of it is propaganda, or I mean not propaganda, but like how much of it is like fake information?
There's something OSINT. OSINT are like open source intelligence accounts, right? I should warn you, not all of them are trustworthy. I would actually say that a majority of them are not trustworthy, but I can DM you some of them. These are people who basically collect social media posts and videos, posted by Ukrainians, by Russians on the front line, etc., etc. And then they analyze it and they post the results. Here, this is one of the bigger ones. One of the most famous ones is probably Oryx. Have you ever heard of Oryx?
I don't think so, but yeah, if you can send me some good ones, I'll follow them for sure. Because I'm
Okay.
looking for, I'm actually
Oryx.
possibly covering the Ukraine war in greater detail in the future, using some of the stuff I've learned from the GamerGate project.
Oryx is a guy, he's based in the Netherlands. What he does is he collects social media posts of destroyed military vehicles in Ukraine, and he made a list of visually confirmed military losses. It's because of him that we know that Russia has by now definitely lost 16,619 vehicles, military vehicles in Ukraine. Of which, let me read here, 12,008 have been destroyed, 752 damaged, 946 abandoned, and 2,913 captured. So there is a lot of open source intelligence being used. And open source intelligence is generally something to follow here. I can give you something else. I mean, this is a bit of a shameless plug. I hope you don't mind this. If you seek to support the Ukrainians through private means, there's a project called the Wild Hornets. So the Ukrainians call the drones that they use to really inflict havoc on the Russian lines. They call them Wild Hornets. And this is basically an organization which collects money and materials to build these drones. All right.
I've interviewed Anastasiya Paraskevova, and I've actually interviewed her for my channel. She runs like a private.
Wonderful person.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
She does a lot of volunteer work with helping the soldiers get equipment and stuff. And I've not donated to her, but I've interviewed her for my show on my channel.
Good.
And Dylan
good.
Burns does a lot of Ukraine content too.
Yeah, he visited me before he went to Ukraine. I thought about going to Ukraine, been invited, but I'm not sure if I should go. I don't want to get in the way of an arms transport.
So, is the Russian offensive in Kharkiv collapsing? That's what I've seen. I don't know if it's
Yeah, it's dead. It's dead. It's been a complete catastrophe for the Russians. They've lost a shit ton of equipment, up to 600 vehicles, possibly even more. They're literally running out of vehicles, by the way. That's something that a lot of people... That's stunning, if you think about it. Like, they literally had... before the war, they probably had warehouses filled with probably up to 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 old Soviet military vehicles. They're burning through almost all of it. They're losing it. They're losing all this stuff. And it's crazy. It's crazy to watch them throw all that shit away. Half the Black Sea Fleet is gone, has been sunk. That's also a great military innovation that the Ukrainians have worked on. They created maritime drones. Basically just a speedboat filled up with explosives and a camera on top and a remote control system to guide it. And they sent those out into the Black Sea to crash into Russian ships and blow them up.
You say that
There's a lot going on.
You say the Ukrainians are digging in. So do you think they're going to retake the Donbass at any point, or is that going to be a victory condition in this war?
I don't know. Like, that's the thing. You never know how war ends. You never know what the outcome is. We don't know what could happen next. You know, we could see a disaster for Ukraine. Their last counter-offensive failed miserably. The thing that everyone is waiting for right now is the introduction of modern Western fighter jets, like the F-16 and the Mirage 2000. The Ukrainians are already preparing the battlefield for that. They're destroying air defenses, Russian air defenses, with targeted strikes. And the Russians are desperately trying to counter that by pulling their own air defense systems out of everywhere else. Like, the border between Finland and Russia is currently almost completely unguarded because they're pulling almost everything out. And once the F-16 is introduced, we get the capacity, the possibility at the very least, that Ukraine may achieve air dominance over parts of the battlefield. And if they can achieve that, that would be the most amazing thing that they can get. Because if they can achieve air dominance, they can just roll right through the Donbass.
So, do you think the fighter jets are going to make the difference? Essentially, air superiority for Ukraine.
Only if the Ukrainians can actually achieve it. And to achieve that, they have to go hunt for air defense systems.
Including some that are in Russia, but the Americans are only giving them permission to strike.
No, the Americans gave them permission to strike the air defense.
Only in certain areas, though, right?
Yeah, but those are within the range. Like the Pantsers, the SAM systems, the books, etc. Those have to be stationed within those regions to be effective over Ukraine. So the Ukrainians got what they needed. And more importantly, what a lot of people forget is when you are taking down an air defense system, right? An air defense system doesn't just it's usually a truck with a launcher on it, right? But that is not the most important part of the system. An air defense unit is usually 4 to 5 trucks with missile launchers, and the more important vehicle is the truck with the radar system. And most strikes target the radar systems. And striking the radar systems is the most important thing because Russia can no longer replace these. With the sanctions currently in place on them, every radar system that is destroyed is a radar system that Russia will never get back.
Now, Russia has recently made a deal with North Korea, and they've been help from
Yeah,
China and Iran too, supposedly.
that has backfired spectacularly into their face because now South Korea is open to sending arms to Ukraine.
I hope they do. Now, there was talk of the Gripen being used in Ukraine, but I think they didn't do that because they were worried about two different weapon systems for fighter jets. But at the same time, then now they're talking about the Mirage. So why
Yeah,
wouldn't they use the Gripen as well?
I think the Swedes already said that they're training pilots on the Gripen.
So they are going to do that for sure.
Yeah.
We have a question from the chat from Airplay Doc. He's Raymond Wallman. He actually created the documentary, one of the two videos I
Oh,
sent you.
oh,
He asks
okay.
about, oh, do you think Putin will be tempted to deploy nuclear weapons?
No, I think he will be cooed out of power. I
I,
think he will be cooed out of power if he tries that shit. Like I think I don't know who exactly revealed it, but there was a revelation recently that um, when the war broke out, China and India confronted the Russians and told them basically, if you use nukes, even if it's just tactical nukes, forget it. We will turn against you.
I actually don't think Putin's going to use nukes. I mean, I think that he has played with the idea publicly for domestic support and to fearmonger internationally. I think he's not going to though. I think if you like watch his interview with like Tucker Carlson, for instance, he makes it like very clear he's not going to. And then he also signed that pledge recently with China,
Can I show you
where
something?
where they both agreed that nuclear weapons should never be used. Thank you for watching another GamerGate book video segment. For 30 days, starting on December 9th, I'm running a Kickstarter campaign for this project, so please back the campaign for the people of GamerGate on Kickstarter or at gamergatebook.com. This project investigating and documenting the history of Gamergate from a variety of perspectives requires your support, and I appreciate it. Thank you.